Shalom. And I start out by giving praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone. Salutations to the whole for that that's pushing this truth across four corners of the earth, our faith, truth, and sincerity. This I'm on my buy back again, that's sitting. This one going to about how the Lord Yahushai, he will put an end to the being in this captivity. He will put an end to the so-called Negro, Latino, Native Israelites being in this captivity, being in this bondage, in America, Babylon the Great, being in this oppressive, this system, that's ran by the so-called white people, Esau, Edomites. Lord Yahushua, is gonna put an end to it, and we ain't that point in time, Lord Yahushua will, put it, it's gonna be an end to, the Israelites, the Israelites, so-called Negro, Latino, natives, which are the Israelites, will, be no more of being under another nation, no more of, dealing with this, being, look down upon, being, last and being, made fun of, not being taken serious by other nations. That's going to come to an end because Lord Yahushua, he will return. He will bring down the so-called white man Esau, Edomite devils out of the power seat. And, in this lifetime right now, in this time, not all Israelites going to be delivered. It's only going to be, the elect of the so-called Negro, Latino, natives, which are the Israelites, Hopefully I'm part of the righteous number, but that's who's going to be delivering. That's who Yahushua is going to have mercy in delivering these times, And, like I said, but, 2/3 of the Israelites going to come back in the kingdom as babies, so. But I'm going to start off in Nahum 1:9. What do you imagine against the Lord Yahweh? He will make an utter end. Affliction shall not rise the second time. So like say Lord Yahweh Yahushai, Lord Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, it's gonna make an utter end, because these so-called white people, Esau, Edomite devils that's in power, they want you so-called Negro, Latino, Native Israelites, back in change, but y'all, have y'all shackled, chained down, and out back in the cotton fields or fields, picking cotton, whatever, doing hard labor, getting beat with whips and so forth. They want to go back. They want you so-called Negro, Latino, Native Israelites back in that situation. They want us, as to say, but that's not going to happen. Because Lord Yahweh Shai is gonna put an end to it. We at the end of this, punishment, you could say, that the Lord Yahweh Shai, has, put us, put the Israelites in, put the so-called Negro, Latino natives in, been being scattered across the four corners of the earth, in different countries and so forth, and here in America, Babylon Great, to serve, to be in slavery, to be under the so-called Negro, Latino. Excuse me, to be under the so-called white man, the so-called white people, Edomites, which are the red people, that's in power right now. The elites, Edom, being under them, this is, this is our last, like I say, our last captivity, the last captivity of the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American Israelites. You know, but like I say, man, you Edomite, so-called white people, red people, you know, y'all want to, put the so-called Negro, Latino, Natives, the Israelites back in, slavery, like I say, get chained back down and so forth. But it ain't gonna happen. It's an end to this. It's coming to an end. And like I said, Lord Yahshua will return and redeem his elect of his people, Israel, Israelites, And like I said, the affliction is not gonna rise up a second time. Because this, like I said, this is the last captivity for the Israelites. And ain't gonna be no more being under another nation. The kingdom of Israel, kingdom of Israel, Yasha Allah, is gonna be forever. But and go from there. It's Jeremiah 29:14. And I would be found of you, saith the Lord Yahweh. I would turn away your captivity. I would gather you from all the nations, and from all the places whither I have driven you, saith the Lord Yahweh. I will bring you again into the place whence I caused you to be carried away captive. So loyal about y'all, I say loyal, it's going it's gonna be an end to this. It's captivity, like I said, it's punishment that we in. We at the end, It's all about those the elect. It's all about the elect of the so-called Negro, Latino, Natives, which are the Israelites. To keep their faith in Lord Yahshua, keep pushing this truth, keep believing in Lord Yahshua, and keep the faith unto the end, and hopefully it'll be part righteous number 2, have mercy by Lord Yahshua, be delivered, from his wrath and destruction that he gonna bring upon America, Babylon the Great. While there's still a grace period to repent, and come to Lord Yahshua, because you still got the apostles and the elders and the brother Great Millstone still teaching on highways and byways on the internet, giving you this truth and understanding of the word Lord Yahshua. But but it's up to I say those are they're gonna believe, and they're gonna keep this truth, they're gonna keep the faith in Lord Yahshua till he returns, and be delivered, and see these so-called white people, red people, Edomite devils, be the kingdom, this system be destroyed, and see the Edomite so-called white people, red people, go down, and they gonna go into captivity, they gonna go into slavery, it's gonna be their turn, to be in chains, in shackles, and getting beat up beside the head and so forth. That's yeah. And they don't want to hear that, and they're gonna start with it, and they're gonna start with those elites, the so-called not the so-called, excuse me, the elites, the bankers, the Rothschild families and so forth, the Rockefellers and so forth, the DuPonts and this and that, the elites, the ones that, in control, of this system, of this world, they have control of the money and the media and so forth, the military might and all that, so, they gonna go into slavery, and and like I say, they're gonna try to escape their judgment. They're gonna go into those bunkers, trying to escape their judgment. They're gonna, but they're not gonna escape. They're gonna go into slavery. But like I said, once the smoke clears from the wrath and destruction that the Lord Yahushua, he returns, and the chariots so-called UFOs, and those thermonuclear missiles begin to rain down on America, Babylon the Great. Once the smoke clears from the wrath and from the fire and the smoke and so forth, like I said, the Israelites, so-called Negro, Latino, Natives, it's gonna, Loyal Shah is gonna, like I said, start with the elect. It's gonna be, placed back into, the righteous land, and like I said, those people that's on the land, those people that's in the land of Israel are now not the real people. Those Israelis, whatever, the small hats, you want to call them, whatever. Those imposters, they are not the real people, and like I said, Loyal Shah, that's gonna be destroyed too. That land gonna be burnt up, But it's gonna be remade. It's gonna be cleansed, because the fire, that's gonna come by the thermonuclear missiles is a cleaning agent. It's gonna make the earth refresh the earth, as you could say, and clean up, and clean up all the mess that the so-called white people, Esau, Edomite devils, had done, while they was in power, them dirty, nasty Edomites, man, And like I said, they're gonna be doing cleaning up too. They're gonna clean up, so-called white man, Esau, Edomite devils, man. They gonna, like I said, they're gonna go into slavery. Like I said, start with those elites, and they're gonna clean up too, man. But we'll go from there. Let's see. This is Revelation 13:9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. So if you have an ear, and you have ears, but do you have the spiritual ear? Do you have the understanding? Do you believe that in this, what this saying, is saying? It's on Revelation 13:10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience, the faith of the saints. So who led the so-called Negro, Latino, Native Israelites into captivity, right? Set up by the so-called white man, Esau, Edomite devils, that led, the Israelites, into captivity. The tribe of Judah, which are the so-called Negroes, led, the slave ships, and led into this place, America, Babylon the Great, today, and being, and like I said, the Negro, the Latinos and natives as well, being in slavery, and, have, what's his name, Cristobal Cabal, whatever you want to call his name, whatever, that guy, they call him Cristobal Columbus, well, you could call him Cristobal Cabal, whatever, but you know how you say it, really, but he, had the natives, the northern kingdom, and in captivity, when they got over here, they backstabbed the natives, which are the Gadites, and the tribe of Reubenites, Seminole Indians, the Gadites, which are the natives, Indians, or you could say Native Americans, but like I said, the Northern Kingdom went into, was in captivity as well, as with the Southern Kingdom, Judah, which are the so-called Negroes, and you have, Benjamin Levi in there as well, Benjamin being the so-called Jamaicans, Levi being the so-called Haitians, but like I say, the Edomites, they, and like I said, they did wrong by the so-called Negro, Latino, Natives, Israelites, by, you mess with the Lord's, apple of the Lord's eye, you done wrong by Israelites, even being in a captivity, you went as far as trying to get rid of try to get rid of the so-called Negro, Latino, Natives, Israelites, That's how much hatred the so-called white man, red Edomite devils have for you, so-called Negro, Latino, Native Israelites, man. But like I say, they gonna, the get back is coming. The get back is coming for you, so-called white people, so-called white people, red people, Edomites, man. Y'all time of going to slavery will come. And our time of being in this captivity under you so-called white people, Esau, Edomite devils, is coming to an end. We're at the end of it. And just everything got to play out. This place, America, Babylon Great, going down. This place is going down. Y'all world, y'all system is at the end. Is going down. And more things just got to play out in prophecy. And I say, and Loyal Shah going, I say things got to happen in prophecy. All hell got to break loose in this place, America, Babylon Great. This financial system got to crumble, which we in that time now. And then, like I said, the mark of the beast gonna come into play. The RFID, which is the mark of the beast, which is the RFID chip. The RFID chip, which is the mark of the beast, right? And then once that comes about, then Loyal Shah gonna return, and those that keep their faith through all, that's what's ahead. So those that keep their faith through all that, the elect, if you're there knowing, you keep your faith, you'll keep your faith through all the trial and tribulations that's ahead. Me myself for the foremost, keep my faith, through all the trial and tribulations now and going forward. Keep your faith until the end, till the Lord Yahshua returns. Or you die for this truth. You kept your faith and died in the truth. Hey, Lord Yahshua, hopefully to have mercy. You build that number. He acknowledged, like, yeah, you believed until the end. You kept your faith. You didn't look back. He acknowledged, he like I said, Lord Yahshua knows it. Who is the elect. He knows who's gonna keep their faith and keep pushing and not look back, not give up. Not bow down to the system. Not take that that RFID chip, which is the mark of the beast. And keep their faith until the end and hopefully, and be delivered by the Lord Yahshua. So I'm go from there. This is Revelations 2:25. But that which ye have already, hold fast till I come. That's talking about this truth, this word, this knowledge and wisdom of Lord Yahshua, that the apostles and the elders and the brethren and the great millstone are teaching and pushing. Week in, week out on highways and byways on the internet, giving you understanding of his word, giving you giving you the good and the ugly of the scriptures, right? Because it ain't all good. There's some ugly in there, as far as, following Lord Yahshua, you're going to have to deal with, losses in his life, dealing with being persecuted for this truth, dealing with family and friends, looking at you funny because what you involved in or what you believe in this truth. You don't hang around them no more. You don't do the things that you was in the world before before you came to the truth. Once you came to the truth, you put all the worldly things, that your friends and family was involved in. You put that away. You stop celebrating these pagan holidays. You stop, going to parties or this and things that was of the world. You stop doing that, and you kept the faith. You kept. Excuse me. You put that away. You put all this stuff away, and you follow the Yahweh. You teach this truth. You learned this truth, and you keep the high holy days, the real high holy days. Understand the real high holy days, and so forth. The meaning of this word, the true meaning, what it's about. And like I say, you follow Yahweh Shai, to you want to gain the Lord Yahweh, wisdom, knowledge, understanding his word, and to gain the kingdom. The next kingdom, kingdom is going to be by the way of the Israelites, and Lord Yahweh, being, over in King David, the house of David, 144,000, the elect, you had that belief. And once you heard this truth, and it goes from me first and foremost, like, you like, yeah, this the way, this the truth. It's it right here. Like I say, the elect is gonna keep this truth. It's gonna keep this word and not look back and go back into being a Christianity. The Christianity doctrine. Going to the Baptist church. Or whatever. Or any other philosophy or the ways of this world, right? Cause that all that the things is everything else in this world is these doctrines or whatever is gonna lead you to death and destruction. It's not gonna lead you to life and to have mercies by Lord Yahushua in these times going forward. But like I said, the elect is gonna hold fast to this truth and keep this truth and keep this wisdom knowledge of Lord Yahushua unto the end. But next verse, Revelation 2 and 26, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations. Yeah, so I said the elect or the Israelites know the apostles and the elders and the brother of great millstone, and men of the Lord that had this truth. You keep that, you keep this word, keep this truth, keep pushing, keep teaching, no matter what. Hey, Lord Yahushua, you stand strong for Lord Yahushua. You believe, continue to believe Lord Yahushua, no matter what. He gonna acknowledge you. Like, okay, you gonna get that, you gonna get that crown of life. He gonna, give you power, and reign over the, the Edomite devils and so forth, all the other nations, these Arabs, Ishmaelites, Moab, which are the Chinese, and Elam, which are the Indians, that not the Indians, excuse me, over there in India, over there in India, right? That's Elam, So Lord Yahushua gonna give power, over all the other nations, right? So, and that's what we look forward to, to have to be to be a ruler over nations, man. And to have the abundance and everything that Lord Yahushua has in store, we're gonna have the elect gonna have everything, they heart's desire. It's nothing that it's not gonna be limited, to the elect, to what they can have, because you kept the faith in Lord Yahushua, But in this verse, Revelation 2 and 27, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as the vessels are a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father. So yeah, that's what's gonna happen for the elect. They gonna have a rod of iron, man. Gonna rule over these nations. Gonna be beating up the so-called white people, red people, Edomites, over the head, and other nations as well. Get in line. Gonna have nations they're gonna be, handmaids, servants unto so-called Negro, Latino, Israelites. The table's gonna turn, man. It's gonna be beautiful though. It's gonna be in a righteous way. Because right now we being the way this world being ran. Excuse me. The way this world being ran now is being ran by the so-called white people, East Edomite devils. These red devil Edomites. It's being ran in wickedness, man, and confusion and so forth, man. It's against the ways of Lord Yahushua, against the ways of Lord Yahweh Yahushua, But once Lord Yahushua returns and take the Edomites down, it's gonna, Lord Yahushua gonna deliver his elect. And like I say, once the smoke clears, Yahushua, King David, the house of David, this earth, everything, and the people in the other nations is gonna be ruled in righteousness of the ways of the Lord, and the earth gonna be more beautified and so forth, man. Ain't gonna be no confusion, So I ain't want to make this too long. I didn't want to make this too long, so hope this is edifying. So again, I like to give all praise and honor and glory to you. Excuse me. Again, I like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rakakadash, To the apostle elders, to the Sisakin brothers, to the few Akwath sisters, to do listen, keep the faith, and Yahushua keep fighting with that